Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldmans.
All we ask is for the right to breathe clean air, to be warm in the winters and cool in the summers. This is what one inmate said to the Idaho Statesman back in 2024 about life inside the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, otherwise known in Idaho as IMSI. It's a place that's now expected to become home to Brian Kohberger, who, of course, took a plea deal and said, I killed them, to all four. You've got, of course, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, who, of course, is a triplet who has to go on in life now with the siblings do without him. Welcome to Surviving the Survivor, everybody. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And without further ado, I'm going to bring them in. First guest, Jay Christensen. He is a former deputy warden at IMSI. He ran the place for a while and really understands what is going on behind the scenes. Next up here, please give them a warm welcome, Ryan Robertson. He once was serving a life sentence inside of IMSI. He understands how that particular prison operates from the perspective of a former inmate from the ground level on up. And I couldn't resist bringing on crowd favorite Larry Levine, who is a prison consultant, and he is the author of thousands of books now. One of them, Prison Politics 101. Hold that up, Larry. Prison Politics 101. And he made a vow to Carm that he's going to limit the F-bombs today. And for Ryan and Jay, if you don't know, my mom is a sometimes co-host of the show, 86 years old. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's as my daughter would say, a baddie. She's a bad woman, tough as nails. So let's just dig right into it. And Ryan, I guess before we get there, let me ask you, I mean, what landed you inside IMSI? And you, from what I understood, you had a life sentence. So what got you in there in the first place?
Well, I still currently do have a life sentence. And in this state, what that means is you'll do the front end of your sentence, and then you'll have the tail end, which is the part where you could end up either going back for such amount of time, or if you stay in prison, that will be the length of time that they can hold you, period. And then they have to let you walk out, regardless of what custody level or anything like that that's going on with you. With myself, I was and am. I served a 25-year sentence straight. That was 25 years with life indeterminate. So now I'm out on parole, and I will remain on parole for the rest of my life. And if at any time I mess up, I go back, and then they decide how long I'll be there, whether it's a year or the rest of my life.
And how long have you been on the outside for now?
Almost 5 years.
5 years. And can I ask you what the crime was?
Yeah, I was incarcerated for second-degree murder at the age of 19.
At the age of 19. Well, sounds like you've been able to turn your life around. And if you remain on good behavior, which I know you will, does that mean you stay out of prison now?
Yeah, absolutely. I basically live a life that I don't even really have contact with the Department of Corrections. I meet up with them a couple times a year, and that's it. So, yeah, it's pretty lax.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that it sounds like you turned things around, and we all believe for sure in second chances. Can I ask you how old you are now? You went in at 19. How old are you today?
49.
49. Wow. You look great too, man. You look great.
They say prison preserves.
Yeah, there you go. So Jay, to you, tell us a little bit about yourself, and also how, I obviously I asked you to come on the show, and then I said, hey, do you know any interesting former inmates? And you said Ryan right away. So obviously you guys have a relationship. How did the two of you sort of stay in touch along this journey?
Well, I have 32 years with the Idaho Department of Corrections. I retired as a warden, but in my time there, when I first promoted to deputy warden, it was at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. And during that time, I'm not sure where Ryan was at, but prior to that, I was also a sergeant at the maximum security facility. And while I was sergeant, Ryan was serving his time there. But later on, when I became warden at the Idaho State Correctional Center, Ryan was one of my peer mentors that would mentor the new ones arriving and lead them down. And I developed a relationship with him then. Once he was released, I've maintained that relationship. We stay in touch.
And Ryan, any questions you don't want to answer, don't feel comfortable answering, you don't have to, but are you required to stay in some sort of like a halfway house that's monitored, or are you free to stay wherever you want?
I can stay wherever I want. As far as address goes, I just have to have it be an approved housing. So they would come and look at it and make sure that there's, no drugs, guns, alcohol, things like that at the house. And aside from that, as long as it's a positive atmosphere, then they'll approve it.
Okay. And obviously, this is a serious topic. We're talking about a guy who just admitted to the murder of 4 young college students. But when Larry's on, we always have a bit of fun. And I'm going to try to lighten the mood, especially because I'm going away tomorrow. And it's been a crazy couple of weeks in the true crime world. Adam Bluefire used to be in here every day. Now he's back, and I'm happy to see Adam Bluefire back. Larry, I was going to call you Barry, and that's because we had a Little League coach who wound up in prison, whose name was Barry Levine. I think I told you the story.
He's my cousin.
Barry. He should be your cousin. Well, luckily he's not, because he went to prison for molesting young.
No, I don't fucking know this guy.
Yeah, I know you don't. And he's a Jersey guy. But Adam Bluefire here, Larry. Do you think Brian Kohberger is going to end up being the manipulative one who pulls people's strings, or the pushed around target in prison? Your take on the future for Brian Kohberger inside these walls?
I think he's going to try to see what he can get away with, take a feel for the institution. The guy's a manipulator. He does have a degree in criminal justice, although I'm not really sure how that would benefit him. I mean, it's going to be like a pressure cooker. He's coming from a county jail setting where he's probably in his cell a majority of the time to excuse me, I don't mean to do that.
Larry, I'm going to have to tase you, Larry. I'm going to have to put a shock belt on you. But go ahead.
To a maximum security facility. Now, let's ask the old warden, is he going to be locked down all the time, or is he actually going to have yard time? You think they're going to PC him?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jay. Before you get there, from what I've been told is that because he is arguably the highest profile inmate ever to enter the great state of Idaho, that he's going to have to be under some kind of protective order, protective custody. So, Jay, just walk us through this process. We love to go inside baseball. So, if hypothetically, if you were the warden or still the deputy warden at ISMI, and you get word Brian Kohberger is coming and the whole world knows about this guy, how do you prep for him, and where does he go?
First off, I would say he's not the highest profile. He is one of the higher ones, but I wouldn't say he's the highest profile. But given that, because he is a very high profile, he likely would not go into the traditional reception diagnostic unit. They probably would bring him straight into the maximum security unit and then do his receiving and diagnostic at that facility. My guess is that he'll probably be placed either in administrative segregation or protective custody right off the bat to kind of get a feel for things. I believe he's I would consider him vulnerable if I was still in the position, but I think I'd let Ryan speak to that more of how he would be accepted by the prison population.
And Ryan, before we answer that about the prison population, what do you know? I mean, have you been following this case? What do you think of a guy like Brian Kohberger accused of murdering these 4 University of Idaho students?
I can say something that's probably really fair to say is that I have seen the exact same thing that the inmates that are going to be receiving him have seen, because I've just watched the basic news, which is all they'll have available out there. They don't have online. I haven't followed anything online. I haven't been a part of any discussions. I've just seen what I've seen on the news. So that's what's shaped my opinion in my mind of the guy, which is what he'll be walking into in there. And
so just to underscore that, the prisoners who are currently in ISMI, Besides getting like the news word of mouth from the COs that work there and whoever else comes in, the therapists and things of that nature, do they have tablets in there? So are they watching like the local Idaho news? Where are they getting their news from?
No, they get the local news. They have televisions as well. So they get the local news. There's cable channels. So they're looking at CNN, Fox News, any other little subsidiaries of those. So yeah, they're looking at local news. They can get information as far as if anybody still reads the newspaper or gets it in there, they can do that. But so that they have access to the outside information, just nothing as in depth as having access to the internet.
Yeah, this is typically the Larry Levine show. He takes over, but I don't know if I'm going to let him do that today because I'm going back to Ryan, and then we'll get back to Larry/Barry Levine. So Ryan, everyone here wants to know, okay, he just pled guilty. He's getting sentenced on the 23rd, and presumably almost immediately after that, he's going to take the 30-minute trip south of Boise. It's about 10 miles from what I understand. South of Boise is the ISMI. It is a maximum security prison for Idaho's quote unquote most disruptive male residents. When he gets there, arrives there, what is it going to be? What is the process for him to be taken in?
The RDU, that's not located in ISMI anymore.
No.
That's over in the yard. So he's not even going to be received into an RDU, which is the receiving diagnostics unit. He'll just go directly into a cell, more than likely be received into segregation until they can figure out where to house him. If they haven't already got a plan for him, they have a few different special units over there. There is a protective custody. They do have their units that are a lot lighter, a little bit more rough, or I should say a lot rougher. But there's a good chance that he goes right into segregation, and then the prison staff at that point will sort out what they want to do with him. And
just one more for now. So he goes into segregation. What does that world look like? Do they issue him a blanket? Does he even get that? What's that cell look like where he's in isolation, and how much human contact does he have?
He'll walk in there and, he'll have to do the thing that a lot of people have seen on TV where, he puts his hands up to the hole in the door and he's got to back up to it and get his hands cuffed that way. So they'll walk him into the cell. He'll walk in there, he'll back up to the slot and he'll get his handcuffs off. And then what he's looking at is a metal bunk, a thinly padded plastic mattress. He's going to be the new guy. I guarantee you somebody else has already got the good mattress. So he's going to have one about, 3 inches thick. And what he'll be looking at is a metal toilet, a porcelain sink. He'll have a couple of metal shelves in there. A metal bed frame will be on the wall, and that's the extent of it. He'll have a window in his cell that's going to be about 6 inches wide. They're generally designed to be smaller than the human head can fit through.
Yeah, so, and I always ask about this because I'm curious. Life is three-dimensional, not one dimension. So what about like the smells and the sound in there when he goes to bed the first night? What's it smell like in there? How loud is it?
Generally in segregation, there's kind of a respect thing that happens in there amongst the inmates. Everybody kind of tones down at a certain time. In the daytime, there's going to be a lot of loud yelling. You're going to hear banging on stuff. If somebody's in there and they're throwing a fit about something, they might be beating on their door or screaming out the door. You might have guys arguing. So there's a constant noise. I mean, you can hear the vents. They got big vents running up on the roof, and you can hear that. So there's never dead silence. There's always a noise. Metal doors banging, and it's loud. It echoes, and so he's not going to be warm. I know that in the winter or in the summer you got two conditions in ISMI. It's either extremely hot or extremely cold, depending on the AC unit. So it's not a comfortable thing to walk into.
Yeah, that's what I was reading about. But Larry Levine, there's a comment here. I was going to you about something else. But Jeffrey Dahmer was in protective for a couple of years. We know how that turned out for him. I mean, and Jay, I'll have you tell me who's more notorious than Coberger in a minute. But Larry, to you, is there going to be a hit out on this guy, in your opinion, because of killing 4 college students? And
my former inmate network, and I'm in touch with a lot of people. say there's a possibility this guy's going to get some jailhouse justice. I mean, it could happen. Although if he's PC'd up and he's in a seg unit, it's going to be limited access to him. But now let's just suppose a family member on the outside of one of these kids is angry, and somebody knows somebody and somebody pays somebody, and an inmate on the inside can get to him, slip something in his food, whatever it is. I mean, not everybody is safe everywhere. There's always opportunity to get to someone. Maybe not right now, maybe 2-3 years from now. But I believe he'll definitely have a target on his back. It's just a matter of time. You know, they'll get to him. I mean, one of your viewers said something about Jeffrey Dahmer. I think Jeffrey Dahmer, though, is in some type of GP, general population, because he came out of his cell and they took him back in his cell and killed him. If somebody's in PC, they're locked down the majority of the time. So I don't see that happening. But eventually, yeah, I think somebody will get him. I mean, Ray, what do you think? Do you think he's going to get jailhouse justice?
Jay, your thoughts on this?
Well, now in protective custody, they actually are not secured all the time. They're able to come. They're able to come out with each other. They're amongst other protective custody offenders. It's administrative segregation, which is my best guess is where he's going to go. And then they have a review on that, I believe every 90 days, where they meet with him. They meet with anyone that's been involved with his case, and they determine, does he need to remain in administrative segregation or not?
That can change overnight, though.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, and Ryan, to you, this has come up a lot on the show, and I think you can make things clear for us from Cynthia. And I have a lot of info here to get through, but Cynthia Sweezy, the Aryan Race is going to use him. He'll be protected, unfortunately. A lot of people have been saying that. First of all, I guess, how big is the Aryan Race inside of this particular prison? And do you agree with this? Do you feel like they're going to, want him to be a part of the gang?
That won't happen. Absolutely, 100% in my opinion.
No.
Really? How come? How come?
Well, I'm well versed on prison politics in the state of Idaho, and I mean, I'm not going to pretend to assume what they are in other states, but in this state, I'm pretty well knowledgeable after the amount of time that I did, whether I was involved in something or I was sitting in the front row eating popcorn. I saw it all over the years, and he absolutely will not be regarded in that way. He will sit right above the rung as a child molester with what he's got coming in. He did kill college students. They were innocents. They weren't underage, but they were children. And like I said, with the way that the media has painted this in people's minds, aside from the fact that what he did was heinous, gross, and absolutely just horrible, there isn't going to be anybody in there that is going to applaud what he's done and want to accept him for that. I can kind of in my mind have it mapped out pretty much just based off of experience and seeing enough of it what his prison career's, ultimately going to be like.
Yeah. And Ryan, one of the things hosting the show, one of the things that sort of always catches me off guard, because I've had a lot of former inmates on, I have you on, and you just seem like a sweetheart, like a soft soul, gentle spoken, gently, you speak softly.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person, if you were sitting in a car dealership or whatever in the waiting room, who would say, this guy is in prison for second-degree murder. I guess my question, as nicely as I can put it, is why do you think you kind of, quote unquote, broke bad? You seem very educated. You seem very smart. Was it just one bad? We have a detective on every Friday, Phil Waters. He says anyone can wind up in prison for life just based on one bad decision. Is that what it was with you?
No. I had an extensive period in my childhood where there was nothing. I'll just say there was nothing good about anything that I was doing. My mind frame, the things that I wanted for myself, where I saw myself going. There wasn't anything legal about any of it, and none of it was nice. And my initial, 25 years is a long time, everybody, if you think about just who, your average human is, think back 5 years and ask yourself, how changed are you from how you were 5 years ago? And I went through a lot of cycles like that. I went up and down. I got in trouble. I took years and got myself out of the trouble. But in general, there's certain types of people, you could take your different races and et cetera, but by and large, you've got the same types of people within each race of individual in there, whether they're white, black, brown, red, whatever they are. But in general, the people in there, certain types of individuals, they do everything they can to improve who they are. They get stronger, they get smarter. They learn to accept what they can do in their lives, and then they try to thrive in the little environment that they have. But I got to tell you that guys like, Coberger that did what he did, he's going to have a hard time finding his little comfortable place where he can thrive. Because you have to be left alone and be safe before you can actually try to work on yourself. Because when you're living in fear, that's all you think about. So,
yeah, and that's what you said, kind of in passing, is fascinating. That he's going to basically be like a half rung above Chomo. He did kill these 4 young. I mean, I always call them kids. They were 21, 20, 21, but they weren't even close to the prime of their life. And the way he did it, and the fact that this guy was a fan of Ted Bundy and is kind of obsessed with killing, there's certainly no honor in anything that he did. He didn't do it on behalf, a gang code or anything. This is just a sick, depraved mind. And you're telling me these inmates are going to know that right away, correct?
I mean, just looking at him, knowing what he did and looking at his, his face, his pictures on the news. I mean, just the features of his face. I don't think there's going to be anybody that thinks any differently than I do. And I look at the guy, and the first thing I think of is that the guy's a piece of shit. So, and it's either going to want to have nothing to do with the guy and completely stay away from him. Guys aren't going to want to sell with him. Guys are not going to want to eat with him at chow. When he is released into population, nobody's going to want to sit next to this guy when there's going to be 3 guys that come and jump him and clip him right off of his stool and stomp the hell out of him. Nobody wants to be around that, and everybody's going to know what he's got coming. So even guys that aren't violent, who aren't, in the gangs, etc., even the nice guys aren't going to want to be around him because he's too much of a problem. He's going to end up being alone for a lot of years. But because of the high profile of his case, nobody's going to forget who he is anytime soon. And on top of that, the special treatment that he's going to receive from IDOC as far as being isolated, controlled movements, where they shut down halls and make people face the wall and things like that when they want to move him around. All of that is just going to keep a target on him.
Wow. This show might go long. I'm warning Jay and Ryan. Larry knows that. Larry will probably tell me to go F myself and I'll just hop off at some point. But Ned Smith is a friend of the show. She lives near San Antonio in Texas, where the flooding is, and we're all praying for those families. And that death toll just went up. The COE can't handle that story, neither can I. But is this true, Ryan? Ryan is the exact type of bad boy a lot of women love. Is this true, Ryan?
This is true. I'll answer it for him.
I mean, that like you just said, that the look that that look that says, I'm not a criminal, but I mean, let's keep it real. I'm comfortable in my surroundings. I've been tested against a lot of things in life. The world out here, it's really nice. I don't have to constantly be looking over my shoulder or analyzing the scene. I don't have to walk into a room anywhere. Like if I'm in the mall, I don't have to keep, at a distance looking at people to see what their intentions are when they're coming by. I don't want any incidences happening around me. So I'm able to relax a lot more out here. And, for some people in prison, it breaks them down. Others, they walk out of there after a certain amount of time. You end up with a level of confidence that, I went in there as a kid and through some bumps and bruises and a lot of education, I learned how to be a man in there, learned how to like who I like who I am, and I really don't give a shit if anybody else does. It doesn't faze me at all.
Yeah. Well, it gives me hope that there's actually rehabilitation, because we'll ask Jay about that in a minute, but Yeah, a lot of times we hear that there is no such thing as rehabilitation, but you're proof that there is. From Lee T here, Larry Levine, you've been quiet too long. It gets me nervous. Would inmates want to unalive him simply because he's high profile to get bragging rights? That's one question. And Larry, you're the prison consultant. You advise these people. Let's say Brian Kohberger called you on, the old rotary phone from jail and said, Larry, what do I need to do my first day, my first week, my first year? How are you advising him, Larry Levine?
First thing I would do is tell him to keep his mouth shut, keep his ears open and his eyes open. Don't become confrontational with anyone. Don't cut in any line. Don't act like a know-it-all, and try to be as helpful as you can. Show respect, get respect. Nobody's going to respect the guy to begin with because of what he did, but he needs to take it down a notch and, don't act like a know-it-all. The staff, everybody knows. It's like a lot of people go into prison, a lot of chomos go in, and you don't know who they are, but the staff will let the inmates know who they are, so the inmates can beat the crap out of them. The staff wants to do it themselves, but this guy can't hide. Everybody's going to know who he is, and imagine, Ryan, the street cred somebody would get from taking this guy out and beating the crap out of him. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter whether he turns to the right, he turns to the left. Wherever he goes, he's going to have a target on his back somewhere. Yeah. And Ryan's right. None of the race.
He'll be labeled a trophy.
Yeah,
nobody's going to want to have anything to do with him at all. So let's say he gets into a beef. Somebody's beating the crap out of him. Nobody's going to come to his rescue. And there's a good chance that the staff, they're not going to come to his rescue either. They may egg it on. They're going to turn away and walk in another direction. So I would tell him to watch his back every minute. And if somebody acts like they're his friend, they probably aren't. They're looking for something vulnerable so they can get to him.
Yeah, two things instantly raise my blood pressure and my heart rate, and that is my mom's voice. Instantly it goes up, and the thought of going to prison. I can't control it. It scares the shit out of me. Alicia Elliott here. Would they consider shipping him out of state to another prison? Jay, this is your world. I got a few questions for you, Jay, but let's start there. We have a case. Our original case is about a guy named Dan Markell who was murdered by a bunch of gangsters and his ex-wife's family in a murder for hire plot. And he, in his defense during trial, threw the Latin Kings gang under the bus. So they had to ship him out of Florida. He's now in South Dakota. People don't know him nearly as well, but the whole world knows about Brian Kohberger, right, at least the state. So is there even some place that they could ship him, or would they consider that?
I don't think that the press has been any better for him across the state line. We've got another state just 50 miles away from there that they could ship him to, but I just don't think the press has been any less than that. He actually was living in Washington when he committed these crimes, and he drove across the lines in order to commit the crime. But no, to answer your question, I don't believe he will be going to another state.
Yeah. By the way, you said he's not the most notorious. Chad Daybell is in this same prison, by the way, and he was teamed up with Lori Vallow and convicted of murdering Lori's young children, which is horrible. But there was also an execution of Richard Levitt. I assume you remember that, Jay. Tell us who Richard Levitt was. In your opinion, who's the most notorious inmate that you came across in that prison?
Well, it's probably old news, but maybe Thomas Creech or James Woods. Maybe James Woods. Tell
us about James Woods. What's he in there for? If he's still
James Woods was a mass murderer. He for many years traveled across the country, killing people along the way, and he was eventually caught after he kidnapped and killed a young lady and a girl, a child in Pocatello, Idaho, and I believe was like a newspaper delivery girl or something along that line. But he was eventually caught. One of his victims that he had shot in the head after raping in Iowa and left her to die in a cornfield actually lived and came and testified against him in his trial. And but there's a book on him. I think it's called Eye of the Beast. But that outlines his story pretty well. We also had Joseph Duncan. I don't know if you remember Joseph Duncan. He used a hammer to murder entire family, and then he kidnapped the young child and took her for multiple months and molested her all that time. And she actually escaped him and survived. And he was caught, and they had connected him with several other murders as well.
Yeah, and Ryan, let me ask you a question. You're probably going to laugh at me, but you hear about Brian Kohberger, and he's a scary dude. I mean, you look at his picture here, and it says everything. If I can pull it up, got some new settings going on, but I mean, this is Ryan. This is him. I mean, he was sort of like your typical outcast in high school. Didn't have friends. He got addicted to heroin in high school, then got off it, and he's a vegan. He lost a ton of weight. But are there going to be people in the system who are in this prison who are actually afraid of this guy? Because this guy, they say, would have turned into a serial killer. Larry and Jay are both laughing at me. But Ryan, tell me what's up. I mean, are they going to look at him? Yeah.
I've seen a whole lot of, I mean, you got every level. You got every level of inmate in there. You got every level of human in there. You've got, I mean, people in there. You've got your guys that are extremely scary as far as you got guys that are, you got certain individuals. I mean, I knew of a couple guys that went in there and they had life sentences as well. And I believe two of them were both in there for killing babies. They were baby murderers. And however, they didn't get a lot of good love from people, and they fought a lot, but these guys were some badass dudes. We're talking like 5 people coming at them at a time and losing. But they keep coming. They keep coming. One of them was full of holes. He had scars all over from getting stabbed. And through his time, they just kept coming at him. But this guy was a bad boy. So, but I don't see that. I don't see that in this guy giving me an evil look from his bench there. That might be something that he's got going for him is the intense stare. That might get a few people. But by and large, a couple slaps and, some harsh work. Maybe the guy's a UFC fighter. I don't know.
Yeah, I assume that the baddest guys in there are not going to be afraid of a stare and a guy that was once. Yeah,
I don't think the guy is scary, Joel. I think the guy is more of a psycho, and you need to watch him and be careful around him. He went after defenseless kids. It's not like he went after some real people that were a challenge.
Right.
And I think he's more impressed with himself than anything.
Absolutely.
The guy's conceited. I don't remember where I heard or saw it. Maybe I was just on Ashley Banfield. Maybe she said it, that he likes to watch himself on television or something. So he's kind of, if he was on the outside, he'd be Googling himself. He's one of those kind of people.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's crazy because, and I've mentioned this, but the Dateline episode that aired May 9th, they mentioned this podcast because they said that they believe he was watching it. They don't know for certain. They don't have court records, but apparently he was watching a lot of podcasts and was interested, which is what a lot of quote unquote serial killers or depraved killers do. This is a question that everybody's had, Ryan. So let's put this one to rest. He's a vegan. In the county jail, he's apparently getting peanut butter and jelly every day of his life. What's he going to get? How do they accommodate this inside the walls of IMSI? Jay, why don't you take that? Jay, why don't you take that one?
Vegan is a choice. They have 5 different choices in there. Vegan is one of them.
And so what do you give us? What does a vegan meal look like inside this prison, Jay?
Ryan, can you tell them what a vegan meal looks like more?
No, the vegan meal is trash. The mainline meal is nothing to write home about, but we're talking. If I remember the correct one, you're looking at like mystery patties made out of
soy.
I don't even know. Yeah, everything's soy. You got and you eat a lot of the same stuff. They don't have a large variety. Main Pop, they've got, about a 30, 40-day rotation on variety, say like for dinner, but not vegan.
What's like a typical dinner inside for you, Ryan, not for Brian Kohberger?
Just like going through mainline.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's 3 squares. You're always going to have a meat. You're going to have a dessert. You're going to have a grain, a vegetable. They keep it, and they give you the option of water or juice. That's your dinner. Sometimes, I remember in there that when you, on pizza night, pizza was a big thing. Everybody was happy and excited all day because we were getting pizza. What I discovered over time was that it was the word pizza that everybody loved to either say or think about where it takes them back to, because the pizza was trash too.
Yeah.
It was just a little crusty piece of cardboard with some cheese on it. But still, when it was pizza day, it felt good.
Sounds like Domino's thin crust, which I actually like, by the way. Shout out to Domino's. But Jay, to you, there's a big job there for the staff, and that is really you don't want a guy this high profile. We can't say the word on YouTube because they run the world and will punish us for it. But they would not want him to unalive himself, which some people think is a possibility, that he will try to take his own life. So, Jay, what do you have to do to protect the institution and the higher ups? You don't want to be the warden of the IMSI when this guy, if he tries to, eliminates himself. It sounds like he might get some serious prison justice in another way, but what do you do to keep him from hurting himself?
Well, I mean, immediately as they bring him in, there's going to be in processing. And in that in processing, there's a series of questions that he's asked for medical purposes and psychological purposes. And if he says anything that is indicative of being hopeless or self-harm, then he likely will be placed on a suicide watch until he can be evaluated further by a mental health professional that says he's not at risk to himself. And then when he goes into administrative segregation, he's not going to be he's just going to be another one on the row that they're feeding. He's just going to be another one on the row that they go down and ask if he wants outside rec. He's just going to be another one on the row that they ask, you want a shower tonight? And he's just another one that they're going to put restraints on. They're not going to see him as notorious in there.
Interesting. And Larry, what about commissary? You got to survive on Snickers bars and whatever else you can get in commissary. Is he even gonna have a chance to take that money, or is it gonna get taken from him in there?
I don't know if they're going to take the money from him, but if he gets to go to the store and gets commissary, there's a good chance people are going to punk him for his commissary, which means other inmates are going to take it from him. Maybe somebody's going to sell him protection and tell him, you owe me rent on this cell. Maybe he will pay for protection. This guy's got a lot of groupies. It's like Charles Manson or the Mendez brothers, where all these women want to get with him. So he may have a tremendous amount of money end up on his inmate account. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened and the prosecutor went after that money for the victims fund. But I'm sure he'll get something. And I was in 11 different facilities. And people that are in protective custody in the SHU, whatever it may be, they have a different commissary list. So he's not necessarily going to have access to the same thing everyone else does. And it's not going to matter because half the shit on the commissary list isn't in stock anyway. So you never know what it is you're going to get. And, inmates, they steal from, I wrote another book called Cooking in the Clink. It's on Amazon, where I teach inmates how to basically steal from the institution, food from the dining hall, whatever it may be, and how to cook different meals with it. And I ate special food all the time. Ryan's smiling, but he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Where we were stealing whole chickens, 5-gallon drums of vanilla ice cream, flats of eggs. We were having omelets. I mean, if you're hooked up, I did a lot of legal work on the inside. But if you're hooked up and you're helping people and you're tied in, you can really get some good grub in there. And some people, they eat shit every day. They don't get anything good. It's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know.
That's like that on the outside, too. Ryan, I knew that Larry was completely crazy when he told me one time that he actually enjoyed his 11 years because he didn't have to worry about paying taxes, mortgage, all these other things. Yeah. That's how I knew he was nuts. I'd rather pay taxes than be in prison. No offense to anybody. Dexterity 007 here.
It was relaxing, is what I said.
Relaxing, yeah, like the spa. IMSI and the spa on a Sunday are the same. Will you get a tablet in prison, Jay? My cousin's in. He has one, according to Dexterity 007. Does he get a tablet? Is he allowed that?
Well, currently the contract in Idaho has JPay tablets, and the way that the tablets work that they're currently do is he has to purchase it from commissary, and then it'll be delivered to him. It's his tablet. He owns it, and he'll be able to use that, and he can actually do all of his banking and everything on that tablet. But I believe they are going to a new contract, and if it's a new contract, then he'll be provided with a tablet that he loses when all's said and done.
Yeah, there's so much I want to get to here. So one of the things, Ryan, that I've heard, which is probably totally inaccurate, is that on the inside, they actually, you're probably going to laugh at me, but I've read this a few different places, that they want inmates who have stabbed people because they want someone who is proficient with knives. Is that ridiculous? Or is that something that they look for on the inside?
I mean, how proficient with knives do you got to be to poke a hole in somebody? I mean,
yeah, not you.
Really, you just come at them hard and swing, I guess. But I mean, we're not talking like Marines who are trained in where to stab somebody. They just start stabbing away, I guess. But
yeah. And by the way, we learned the difference on one of these shows between a shiv and a shank. One's metal, one's made out of plastic or something. I forget which is which. But what about gang life inside the prison? You definitely said he's not going to be recruited by the Aryan Nation. In this particular prison, which is the biggest gang? Is there a gang that runs the show there?
Aryan Knights.
Yeah.
Aryan, yeah. And
Aryan Knights or SVC.
What's SVC?
Severely violent criminals.
That's a gang?
Yes. Idaho found.
I'll bet you can't guess what they got to do to get into that gang.
Do some wet work, huh?
I need somebody to. I have a pug, by the way, named Fred, which is going to make me sound very manly. But he goes in his crate, and I've got a prison. It says San Quentin State Prison, but maybe I'll get him a SVC. I can't believe there's a gang called SVC. Severely. I mean, Ryan. All kidding aside, I don't know if you were part of a gang or not part of a gang, but I assume you want to try to avoid it, or do you want to join a gang for protection?
Are you talking about me or him?
In general.
The way that the system works in this state, it's not one where you have to go be in a gang to be safe. If you're in a gang, you kind of make yourself safe within your own gang or within the peace treaties amongst the other gangs, but you don't get a whole. Honestly, in the prison system out here, it depends on what housing unit you're in. The gangs like to be isolated to specific areas. If you're unfortunate enough to land in one of those areas, you're going to go by the hardcore prison politics when you walk into those tiers. We're talking, they want to see your paperwork when you walk through the door. You're probably putting in work within the next couple of weeks because everybody's got to earn on that tier. Somebody comes through the door, the new guys, somebody like you get in rotation, and the next guy's going to go check his paperwork. And if it doesn't check out, or if he gives any attitude, the new guys got, they get together a group of new guys and they got to go in. If it's somebody that probably got put on that tier to receive some kind of retribution or punishment from, staff didn't like him, he could end up in there. So that's another thing. If he thinks he's going to be, a wise ass or act like a jerk to staff, he could very well end up on a move sheet and land in a place that he does not want to be in. And it'll just be a big fat oops. But if he's a nice guy and he learns to make friends throughout the years, then he might have, decent cellmates and decent housing units, good job opportunities. But trust me when I say it doesn't take anything like a crossword, and you'll be finding yourself for years coming back out of that ditch. You don't get to say sorry and go back to work tomorrow. We're talking years before you get your trust back.
And Ryan, I just want to ask you because Jay just mentioned, and I'm just taking notes for my next question here, but Jay mentioned Thomas Creech, who they tried to
Yeah.
put to death recently. Did you come across him? I don't know if James Woods and Joseph Duncan are even with us still.
I believe Creech was in Valley County, correct, Jay?
Yeah, he's death row, so you would not have come across.
He was in Valley County originally, correct? That was where his crime happened.
I believe so, yes.
When I got arrested at 19, I also got put into Valley County Jail. Now they have a modern jail now, but back then they were in the process of building the new jail, and it was one of those old dusty type, old school, grungy under the courthouse with bars, and they had the big tube on the wall. They'd open up and pull the levers to open up the doors. I mean, this thing was old, and they had a cell specially done up for Creech, and they had put iron mesh all along the outside of the bars to keep him from being able to reach out. And that was my first experience of being locked up, period. I got to go into his cell.
Wow.
So that was the very first cell that I ever lived in. And I mean, I wasn't too pleased with that, but I mean, there's a little history. But yeah, I landed in Creech's cell.
Yeah.
With him. It was just the one that they had built for him during his time.
But on the inside, does everyone know he's sort of the guy? He is this notorious killer that's in there. Does everyone know him? Yeah. I
mean, you got to think about how long ago it was. I don't even remember exactly what he did. I'll say this: he's forgotten.
Yeah, I think he went.
Remembered. He's not. Nobody knows who he is. He just lives on death row. He doesn't see anybody. Is he still alive?
He's still alive. Yeah.
He's still alive. Yeah. He's actually never has been crossed with staff. I mean, my entire 32 years I was there, I never remember him being crossed with staff. Now, he's killed another inmate. And there's other inmates he really disliked and let them know that if he had the opportunity, he would kill them. So
I probably want to stay away from him, but I think he entered death row in like the early 70s, and he's been on it ever since. And they literally tried to put him to death recently, but they couldn't find his vein. And that's one of the reasons they're trying to get the firing squad.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to ask all three of you this, starting with Larry, and we'll go around the horn here. But Larry, would Kohberger be better off having gotten the death penalty and just living on death row until, his 30 years of appeals were up and he gets shot and killed?
He may never, if they put him on death row, he's going to have more restrictive confinement, but his life would still be the same. I mean, somebody serving a life sentence, they'll get out, as Ray said. They're going to commingle with other inmates in certain situations. But nobody has an out date. No one on death row has an out date. Nobody, serving a life sentence has an out date. I don't believe they're running, are they running programs for people on death row? I mean, what do they do?
Larry's calling you Ray, but it's Jay, Larry. It's Jay.
And my middle name is Jay. I don't even know why I'm doing that. I mean, do they run programs for
because
people?
I called you Barry. It's because I called. Go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, it's in my head.
So you try to find something to occupy time, no matter what the sentence is. And I can't tell you what they're doing with death row right now, but I do know that they have over the years done several different things to try to just occupy their time.
Yeah. And Jay, let me ask you, same question. Do you think he would be better served just being on death row as opposed to living in it sounds like this guy is, miserable. If I was this guy, he's not a normal person, so he doesn't think this way, but I would do anything possible to just avoid going into this prison, including probably swallowing 75 cyanide pills. But do you think he'd be better off, on death row, where he's basically just left alone and there to rot and die?
When he's on death row, he still receives all the same policy as if he was a medium custody in a completely different facility. The only difference is he has a single cell and he is secured the majority of the day. He does come out for exercise. He does come out for showers. And there may be, maybe just a couple hours out of his cell a day for exercise and and or a shower, and there might be 2 out of the 7 days a week that he's not afforded that opportunity for one or the other. So that's usually how that rotation works out. If he was to go into, as what he's going into now, there's a possibility down the road that he could go to a medium security facility where he's got the gym, education building, potential to work in like correctional industries. So he is better off possibly where he's at now. However, I've had guys tell me going to segregation's vacation for them. And if he's the type that's got that loner mentality and he does not care about having a social life, does not care about having anybody around him, which, I mean, he very possibly could be, maybe he would want to be in that isolation the rest of his life.
Yeah, he's Ryan, just so you know, he was apparently diagnosed, although people say it is not true, but for his defense, with autism. He's a very awkward guy. I assume you meet people in prison who are awkward, but he's not the kind of guy that seems very social. He's always kind of on the outside looking in. On the Dateline episode, they talked to people who had come across him in both Idaho and Washington State. They just said he was out there. He was bizarre. They wanted to kind of avoid him. So I know we talked about someone wanting to get the trophy, but in general, will he just be ignored because he is a little off, Ryan?
Like they say, something else will come along at some point that's shiny, and it'll get everybody else's attention, and he'll fade away unless if he can keep himself up in the forefront of everybody's mind. But by and large, nobody's going to be impressed with who he is or what he did or his status as far as being on TV and all these interviews and stories about him on television. That when you're in there, you lock into a day to day, and that's what you focus on. It's your little routine for the day. You don't live with your mind outside of the fence, focusing on everything out there. You just go through your day. It keeps you sane. If he likes to be social, he will find people that'll talk to him as soon as he doesn't have the tornado flying around him and the dust settles down and he can just move on with his life. I think the best thing that he did for everybody, let me rephrase that adding into that plea deal that he could not have any appeals.
Yeah.
I mean, that puts the lid on it and shuts everything up from here on out. Stories over for that dude. He's not, like you said before, he likes to see himself. He's the guy that would be Googling himself. Mm-hmm. Well, story's ending, buddy. We can talk about you out here, but you're never going to be, he himself will never be sitting in front of the camera again. He's done. This is it. Unless somebody wants to interview him and put a show together, but Yeah.
Which, by the way, I heard in Idaho, Jay, you might know this. In Idaho, I heard you can only do phone interviews. You can't go in there with a camera crew. Do you know if that's true, Jay?
Well, there is a policy that restricts any kind of a interview, but however, it can be waived by the director.
Yeah. Okay.
And there has been quite a few different interviews. But we even in the facility that I was the warden at, we even shot an episode of Love After Lockup in there. They said we were the first facility to let them come in with the camera.
Hey, Jay, you know what? I'm coming out for the sentencing. I'd love to meet you and Ryan, but maybe we can arrange a little tour of the prison while I'm there. I'll be out there for a week. I'll talk to you offline about that now that I just told the world, but I would love to check it out. I'd need Ryan and or 75 security guards with me just to make sure I survive the tour. But
give me a call. I'll go with you.
Yeah, Ryan, I need you there for sure. Please.
I think you would be shocked. It is not what you hear online. It's not what it's being made out to be.
We didn't even get to that yet. We got to get to that, but maybe that'll help me. So let's get to some of that now, because I'm going way outside the lines, as they say. So the conditions inside IMSI. They say that inmates spoke to the Idaho Statesman, Ryan, that the cells are some of the quote unquote cleanest places you could find, which is interesting. But then he saying that they're not the cleanest, saying that the recreational cages had quote unquote feces and urine on the walls, and floor, and that incarcerated workers constantly have to be cleaning them, but there's always urine and feces. They talked about the HVAC system. It would be used by inmates to send urine down as retaliation to others. And then in 2024, there was a hunger strike. 90 inmates protested IMSI. Complaints included overuse of solitary, delay in medical care, alleged excessive force by guards, inadequate mental health treatment, lack of access to fresh air, tolerable temperatures. The response from the Idaho Department of Corrections denied it was a hunger strike, saying inmates had commissary access and blamed restrictions on increased contraband and violence. So the question is, it's ranked one of the worst prisons in the land. If I can bring up this graphic, and I apologize because we've got a new little system here, but known for severe conditions, strict security measures, and inmates on inmate violence, designed to house state's most violent and disruptive inmates, one of the top 15 worst prisons in the country. Do you buy this, Ryan, or is this just media being inaccurate?
I mean, like I said at the beginning, I've never been. I've been out of state into other prisons, but I was still only housed with Idaho inmates there. The only thing I was privy to was, like, as far as the new culture, was meeting, people that lived there, that worked, civilians that worked there. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call it home, but I was there a long time. I saw ups and downs, and there was periods in there where, it seemed like, there was like a high point with gang activity where, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but there was like, at one point, there was like 5 or 6 big gangs in there. And over the course of, say, a year, they whittled it down to like 3. So while they did that process, the inmates whittled it down. So there was a lot of fighting going on that year. But
it would be about the time that you were in there, Ryan, because it was about the time I made sergeant. When I made sergeant, you had to be in the top 5 in order to be selected for sergeant. Well, I was number 19 when I made sergeant. That's how many people turned down the job before they got to me.
Yeah.
Jay, I told you this. I talked to someone very briefly last night who's still active in the prison, so they can't talk. But that person told me it's known in Idaho, and Ryan, maybe you've heard this, as Prisony land, because people have it pretty easy. Have you heard that term, Ryan?
Oh, I'm not even kidding when I say this. I told my wife 2 days ago that I'm going to get a T-shirt made that says Prisony land on it. I was Idaho Department of Corrections, Prisony land, and I was going to wear it. But
if you make them, send one to me. I'll wear it.
Okay.
But Jay, let me ask you, why that term? I mean, is it easier on the inside there, Jay, do you think, than other places you've worked?
Well, I mean, we've had our ups and downs, but I think under the most recent administrations, one of the things that you got to keep in mind, if the place is clean, kept nice, no broken windows, that it's a pleasure aesthetically to look at, that it's a better place to work. And we concentrate really heavy on staff retention. So we want a good environment for not only for them to live, but for them to work. And they have been working a lot on different programs. Now, back in the, when I was a sergeant and Ryan was at IMSI, it was a different world then. It was. It's changed a lot since then. Absolutely, I think a lot of this information is probably old information, but you talk about the hunger strike. What will happen is one person will get a hold of media and says there's a hunger strike. And really, they have not declared a hunger strike, because if they declare a hunger strike, what they do is they do not allow them to get commissary. They take weights every day. They start monitoring to see if they become a health risk. And it probably was not a real hunger strike if IDOC says they had commissary, because they hadn't actually declared a hunger strike.
Look at Jethro. I like this name, Jethro Troll. He'll be a chess master, end up at a teacher's aide instructor teaching chess. Lots of fan mail. Probably get married. Larry Levine.
That's inaccurate. That's
yeah.
accurate.
Gotta be a lot
so.
of good. Got to be a
Probably
lot
so.
of great chess players. Yeah. When you walk around, I used to live in New York City. You walk around the parks in New York City, you see these chess guys.
I used to play all day long.
Did you?
Yeah.
How was your
Last time?
Larry, how's your game? Good? You chess master level?
No, not even.
No.
I can hold my own, but there's people that have been locked up forever, and that's all they did. I spent my time in the law library, but it's something to pass the time, something to exercise your mind.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan. Before I forget, because it's important. So one of the victims' families has come out. Kaylee Gonzalez's father, and I'm going to put up the pictures just so we can see them here. If I can get it to, there we go. So these are the young kids who were young adults. Ethan Chapin on the left, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan. Kaylee Gonzalez's father, second from the left, he's very vocal. He wants this guy to face the firing squad. He's very upset about this plea deal. He says prison is too easy. If you could, I guess, console him or offer him advice if he's watching this, I guess what would you say to him to comfort him in the sense that it's not going to be that easy for him, that this guy's life is now a nightmare inside?
His life is absolutely going to be a nightmare for a number of years. And like I said before, when the dust settles, a lot of people don't understand what the true nature of the punishment is in prison. They think it's just violence or crappy food or, lack of something. But no, it's the amount of time that you got to spend in your head. You really end up in there like self-reflection or some people it's complete boredom. It's the lack of having any outside any touch with the outside world. But all of that, prison becomes a mind game, and it will change you over time in ways. There's all kinds of ways that it can change you, but if somebody like him, from what I've seen, I don't know how well his mind's going to hold up to it over time, because he doesn't right now, he doesn't strike me as the guy that can deal with the environment that he's about to walk into. And so I'll say no, his time is not going to be easy. And in my opinion, I'm not opposed to the death penalty at all. However, for somebody like him, with the amount of life that he's got left in front of him, were he to be healthy, I think this is a worse punishment for him, because he's going to be forced out there to interact. Prison changes like the seasons. It's like, it's sunny one day and it's storming and thunder the next. You never know when your life's going to change. There's nothing stable about it in there. So imagine living on that little edge of feeling like your life could be swept away at any second. You don't get comfortable. Rules change. Those tablets, that little tablet that he's got, all it would take is for a rule change in prison or an upgrade to something else, or for somebody to abuse it and they decide to take it, and their whole world will change. It's just that fast. So, I would like to express that I don't see him, moving into green fields there. It's not going to be easy for him. And then he can also make it even harder on himself, aside from the fact that his environment's not going to be nice to him.
Yeah, I really hope that Gonzalez listens. Go ahead, listens to this. Go ahead, Jay.
I'd like to touch on that as well. Now, to talk about the other side of it, if he had been, if they had gone after the death penalty, if they had gone all the way to trial, that's a roll of the dice. And let's say a conviction comes through, he does get the death penalty. Now the taxpayers of Idaho are required to provide him with a legal team that is, not a public defender, a legal team, and at the taxpayer's expense. And then every single time he gets an appeal, which will be many, many down the road, those families are now re-victimized, because they are basically doing life of coming to court and going through this trial over and over and over again. And then in the end, when the execution does take place, you have staff that have to be involved with that process. And I had a tough old combat veteran tell me one time that he was the head of the execution squad. He told me that, Sergeant, being in combat and putting your sights on the enemy and pulling the trigger is a whole lot different than walking down the hall with somebody you've known for years, having a conversation with them, strapping them down and killing them. He said it has a different effect on you. And I did see how it had effect on a lot of people that were involved with that situation.
Yeah, that's Jay, to you. I mean, we overlooked the corrections officers. Thank you for your service, and it's a very hard job. What's the scariest part or the scariest time of day or year as a corrections officer?
I would say probably the rumors are it's always during the heat, but I don't think I ever experienced that. It's evenings in the big chow halls. It was where I seen some of the most activity. Really large groups in the gym, being in the middle of that is when you have your head on the swivel. A lot of people, they're not comfortable in the correctional world. I guess I'm odd. I always was. And I knew when I walked onto a tier, if it was a hot tier, I could tell the temperature. If I walked onto a tier and it was a cool tier, I could tell right off the bat. Some people, they would see some violence or some type of an outbreak, and they don't come back to work the next day. It did not affect me the same way. So I don't know what the difference is. I don't think I'm insensitive. I get choked up on AT&T commercials.
You were the guy holding the riot shield going in first.
Yeah, I'd be hiding behind him. Miss North's musings here. Asked the warden if Brian Kohberger could work with a profile. We've got some famous profilers on the show. We just had him on. If someone like Dr. Ann Burgess, who is literally, she started the field, if she wanted to go in there, do you think the warden would make an exception for someone like her to interview this guy to learn about him?
I was kind of under the impression, at least early on, that the thoughts, motives up in question right now. What this was all about, the why, and I think he was kind of testing himself. I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else in the room, and he wanted to prove to his professors, without telling them, that he could get away with this.
Yeah. By the way, we've got a lot of new people this week, which we love. If you're not familiar, this is Surviving the Survivor, Monday through Thursday. We do a live panel show with 3 guests every night of the week, the best guests in all of true crime, as you're seeing right here. Fridays, we do it in the afternoon, and Fridays, we have a little bit more fun with some serious subjects, but we have fun even on other nights, despite the heavy subject matter. So please please subscribe, please come back. And I think he's barely keeping it together here. Larry Levine, to you, a few more minutes, and I promise we're going to wrap up because I'm taking a lot of these guys' time, but I am fascinated, as you all know. But Larry, the most dangerous spot for Brian Kohberger, is it going to be when he's in the shower? Is that when he is literally most vulnerable inside that shower trying to clean himself up?
Not really, because they'll probably put him in the shower by himself. I don't see him showering with other inmates. They'll probably cuff him up. It's possible when they take him out of his cell. They'll escort him into the shower if he's in seg. He'll do his shit, then they'll take him out of the shower, cuff him up, and bring him back to his cell. I don't see him going into a general population shower setting at all. So I don't think he'll be in any danger there. It's when he is out among inmates. As Jay had said that maybe, see, I remembered your name now. As Jay had said that he may not always be in a seg unit. He may actually have limited contact with other inmates. That's when he's going to be in danger, when other people can get to him. But I don't think the showers are going to really be a problem at all.
Interesting. You agree with that, Ryan? Where's the most dangerous spot for him?
The most dangerous spots, honestly, for him are going to be like he said, when he's out and able to mingle and move through population. If somebody gets into an argument, that's how you end up in a face-to-face confrontational potential fight, something like that. Everything else comes from the back. Everything else comes from the side. And that's just how it is over in prison. Everything things start and are over with, in 5 seconds or less.
Yeah.
People aren't trying to draw it out. It's about pain, and it happens fast. For him, it's everything seems fine, and he's walking in a line down a hallway, and it just seems like a normal day. And then, it's sitting there eating his pizza on Friday night. And it's always from behind. And so he'll have some incidences where he's threatened, he's scared, and depending on how he deals with that, it could cause an extreme wave of paranoia to go through him, and anxiety that just keeps him looking, like I said, it's that mental torture. Imagine every day walking out of your front door wondering if your neighbor's going to punch you in the face today. They've been promising to.
Well, the way you phrased it, like it's like the weather in prison, it changes on a dime, is an amazing analogy. Now I think you said, Ryan, that you spent some time in the shoe in solitary, like my pug Fred. Describe that for us. How do you not sort of lose your mind in there when you're just by yourself? You get, I guess, the hour of yard time here and there, but how do you keep your head on? And it sounds like to me, like Brian Kohberger is going to be experiencing this, and he's definitely not a normal mind, so maybe that will help him. But how do you not lose your mind just being alone with the thoughts in your head for days, if not weeks on end, if not years on end?
Well, speaking from my own experience, I developed a switch. I can just shut everything off. And I can focus and dive into the little things that I am involved in. When you're locked in a cell, depending on whether or not you've got your property, your personal things, depending on how long you've been in there, will determine whether you have them or not. But certain time, you get up in the morning and it's breakfast. You stay up because you want to, you pride yourself on keeping your sleeping schedule tight. You spend the morning reading a book. Lunch comes. After lunch, you get a workout. After your workout, hopefully the shower comes along, and then you do your laundry in cell and clean your cell on the inside. And we're talking a detailed clean. In the morning, you get up. Part of your morning is to get up and make your bed, even though you're the only one in the room. You get up and you make your bed, and just give yourself, change your clothes, get up, put different clothes on, and try to live a normal semblance of a life. And you'll hear people. You won't see very many, depending on what kind of unit you're in, but you can hear people talking in the vent. If you've got a decent neighbor, you might talk to them in the vent. I know some guys locked down, they make little chess pieces, or they'll make a board and use toilet paper and call the moves to each other. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. They fish, if you're familiar with that term is.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of little ways to keep yourself occupied in there. But if you're the guy that's going to sit in there and go insane, and plus it's been proven, too much seg time over time, it really affects your ability to be reintegrated back into populated areas, and especially society.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking yourself about just even being in the mall and having those thoughts. My mom just hosted someone who spent about a year of their time fighting in Gaza on 4th of July, and he had to go inside. He couldn't be outside for the fireworks on the balcony with my mom. It was, there's a lot of psychological factors at play. But this show, I could go on for 19 more hours. I'm going to spare everybody. Larry Levine was kind enough to come on. Larry, hold up that book one more time, and I'm going to leave it open-ended for you, Larry. This is Prison Politics 101. You can get it on Amazon. Larry, tell the story. You sent this to Diddy, I understand, and who else, and who took it and who didn't?
I sent this to Luigi in New York. I sent this to Diddy. Sent it gratis, too. I even autographed it. And
you didn't send me one, Larry. You didn't send me one, but you will.
Now you sound like the guy on News Nation just said the same thing the other day. Jesse, I forget his name. He came
Jesse
from
Waters.
Law and Crime.
Jesse
That's
Waters.
him.
Yeah.
I figure that they could use it. Give them some knowledge as far as what they're facing, what possibly they will be facing. The federal system sent it back, they banned it essentially across the U.S. Department of Justice. They won't let it into the prison because it's against what did they say? The good security and orderly running of the institution. Does that sound like the lingo they'd use, Jay? Something like that?
Sounds proper.
Yeah.
Sounds proper. So their books came back, and then I sent it to Brian Kohberger. I sent him this in the county and didn't come back. They let it in. So I figured maybe this will help him. Maybe he'll learn something. Hey, maybe he'll try to do some shit in here he shouldn't do, and maybe somebody will stick him. He'll get that jailhouse justice, and he'll learn what it's about.
I'll when I'm in court for the sentencing, I'll ask him. By the way, if there's anyone in Boise who's a fan of the show and wants to help me line wait to get in, because I'm not going all the way out to Boise to not get in. So, but you guys know I'm a fragile soul. I don't know that I can last all night. So if there's anyone out there that wants to help Surviving the Survivor at gmail.com. Look at this. Little Miss Red Velvet OG. New here. Loved it. Please come back. Tell friends. Best thing you can do is please share this show with your friends. We're growing and growing. And we do have the best guests in all of true crime. But you see behind me, we have a better community. We have the best community, not just in true crime, but anywhere. And I feel like it is one happy family. And by the way, Carmen and I are getting back to doing leave a comment, but the COE won't let me do it on this channel because it screws with the algorithm. So we're going to create a separate channel for leave a comment, which is advice from my mom, who's a Holocaust survivor, a licensed therapist. She lost a child. She lost her husband, my father, recently. She's been through hell and back, but she is the most optimistic person I know. Huge thanks to Jay Christensen. He's a former deputy warden at this prison that Brian Kohberger is heading to. He was a full-on warden before he left and retired. And Jay, thank you for your service. I can see why you didn't have a lot of trouble, because you're cool, calm, and collected, and I'm sure you respected the inmates. But just your final thoughts on what awaits Brian Kohberger, which is what we talked about all night.
Well, he does have a long road ahead of him, and I think Ryan probably put it pretty well that that he's going to have to wait for the dust to settle until he becomes that shiny object comes along and distracts the rest of the population. It'll be a long time before he able to see population. He's probably going to be in restrictive housing setting for I would say a pretty significant amount of time before he's considered being let out into the population.
And does that mean a year?
Hold on. People can work their way down in custody. I was locked up with one of the first postal shooters who went and killed two of his co-workers, went home, killed his ex-wife and his ex-mother-in-law. And this guy worked his way down to a low, and everybody loved him. Maybe they sympathized with him, killing the ex-wife and the mother-in-law, but this was the nicest guy in the world, and nobody held anything against him for killing these people. He was well treated, well respected.
In this state, though, sure, everybody can earn their way down, but depending on what you did, you can only earn your way down so far. He'll never see anything lower than a medium security facility, and the largest.
Well, that's a public safety factor, I think they call it.
And so, if you want to talk about how his time can be there, one of the biggest medium security facilities that we have here in the Valley, it's got great programs in it. It's got great educational opportunities. It's got a lot of really good things there. But at the same time, it was also one of the prisons that was dubbed Gladiator School across the nation. So pick your poison. You'll have an opportunity to live however you want to live.
Wow.
IDOC. Now, in fairness, that was when that prison was ran by Correctional Corporations of America. Mm-hmm. IDOC has done a really good job as far as progressing through times with learning to treat people like people. But make no mistake, if you want to screw up for yourself, it doesn't take much to screw up your life with staff, and it takes even less to screw up your life with inmates.
Wow. Well said. Jay, just back to you on the amount of time. I mean, are we talking like 6 months? I got the impression it's going to be years before he's around other inmates. What do you think, Jay?
Well, like Larry said, you can work yourself down, but I could be the warden at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, and I could have 3 people all vote unanimously on the restrictive housing committee, coming to me, making a recommendation to release them out in the general population. Do I want to put my brand on that and say, yeah, go ahead and let them out?
Probably.
I've got to put my brand on it. I've got to put my signature to it and say, yes, I am willing to do that.
You own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay, by the way, I always put guests on the spot. It was amazing to have you. Are you willing to come back on for other stories related to prisons?
Sure. And when you come out to Idaho, get a hold of me. We'll see if we can't line you out a tour.
I love that. I'll definitely shoot you a text sooner than you would like me to. Huge thanks as well to Ryan Robertson. He was, I guess, are you technically still serving a life sentence? You said technically you are. Is that right, Ryan, or no?
Yeah, and it just means that at this point, it'll mean I never get off parole. It means that any crime I were to commit, a misdemeanor, to me, a misdemeanor is a felony. Any crime committed sends me back, and then it's up to them whether or not they want to let me out again or not. So, in light of that, I got to tell you, it's pretty easy to live the right way.
Do they call it community custody?
No, it's parole.
Parole.
And they have levels of security as far as parole goes. You got high, medium, low, and then limited is what.
So you don't have a bracelet or anything. They're not tracking you.
No. I work a normal job and hang out with my family, barbecues, go places with the nieces and nephews, camp. I don't.
Are you allowed to go out of state? Could you travel out of state?
Out of state is the only time that I have to get like a permit.
Get a pass. Yeah.
But I'm on low supervision, so I can basically go anywhere I want within the state. They have districts here, and the district that I'm in is massive and goes like hours and out. I mean, I think it goes about 3 hours up into the mountains from here. That's how big the district is. So I mean, I don't ever really venture too far out of it. The only place I can't go is out of the country.
Yeah. So Ryan, I just want to say on behalf of STS, we really appreciate you coming on. I know everyone would like to have you back on for another story. You willing to do that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And I just want to say that you've given me hope, because we do talk to people who say there's no such thing as rehabilitation, but you are proof that there is. Please keep that right head on your shoulders. Don't do anything dumb. I know you won't. Even something as stupid as driving under the influence will probably get you in trouble. So you can't do that. Don't do any of that. What is, for those who are watching, what's the greatest lesson? Even the worst of times teaches us amazing lessons. What's the greatest lesson that you learned by being in prison all those years?
You asking me that?
Yeah.
The best lesson that I learned was, it's some real simple psychological things like learning who you are and learning how to manage yourself. Understand. I believe firmly, like Jay said, I was involved in a lot of different programs throughout the years. For a long time, that was the only form of education that I was able to receive. So I stayed in it and dug in, and over time, a lot of things started to make sense. Learn who you are, understand your values, and have integrity. Live your values.
Amazing. I have one more question, but first, Dr. Whirly Bird here, super chat. Joel, my wife and I just got to know you from Tragos. That would be the beautifully handsome hunk that is the lawyer, Peter Tragos. Amazing guests. God, I have to listen to everyone tell me how good looking that dude is all the time. Amazing guests. And my wife, Tragos needs to go to prison for a couple of days, rough him up a little bit. Amazing guests. And my wife loves Ryan being on here. Thank you, Ryan, for being so brave and open and sharing your story. The final thing I'm going to leave us with, I love Tragos. He's a good dude. But Ryan, I once heard a former inmate say that it's amazing how many people don't have freedom because of up here. They're worrying all the time. They're anxious. Even, obviously I'm talking about on the outside. I'm one of those people. What advice do you have to people who are trapped in their own mind? I mean, when you walk outside, I assume you have a certain appreciation for the mountains, for the trees, for the wind blowing, not having to look at your back. Talk to me about freedom. What does it mean to you?
What does freedom mean to me? Well, I get to take the me that I spent so many years building and go wherever I want with it, and absolutely correct. I don't miss a sunset. I've got 1,000 pictures of the sunsets, 1,000 pictures of the sunrises. It's never lost on me when I've got my socks off walking in the grass. I love it all. I'm going for a hike this weekend up in the mountains, and I can't wait to see the scenery. Freedom to me just means the ability to live my life and contribute. You got to contribute. You can't be somebody that takes away from society. I enjoy leaving things better than the way I found them. So those are everybody, their freedom is different. Mine, I like to give back. I like to make other people happy. That makes me happy.
I love that. It's amazing wisdom for people who have suffered through some horrible times. And I wish you the best. I wish Jay and Larry the best. Look at this. This comment, by the way, is one of the nicest comments I think I've ever gotten. Lee Dundee, your research on your shows is impeccable. I know it seems like I just throw crap together, but I actually do spend a lot of time prepping each and every show, too much that the COE yells at me. And I still don't feel like I'm working because I love what I do. And I was at Fox, I was a corporate slave. And now I'm out here doing what I want to do when I want to do it. So I appreciate my own little freedom. But huge thanks again to Larry, to Ryan, and to Jay. And we're going to get him back on. Guests, stick around for 1 second so I can properly thank you. The COE and I have to go get the kids. They're up in North Carolina. We're not going to be here through Monday, but we've got programming for you, I believe, each and every day. Love you, America. Love you, Idaho. Justice for the young victims whose lives were taken way too soon. We'll see you on the flip side. Be safe, everybody. Be nice. Don't kill anyone. I'll be right back with you next week. And guests, stick around one moment.